Someone told me that I couldn't do something, then I was going to do it. I'll show you I will do it. So, my name is Marilyn Groff, and I have 5 children, 13 grandchildren, and 12 great-grandchildren, and expecting 2 more next year. At least 2 more. Oh, my hobbies are gardening, and don't have a vegetable garden anymore. I just have a flower garden, and like to feed the birds and the squirrels and watch their antics and stuff. And then I make my own greeting cards for my family, their birthdays and anniversaries. And I like to embroider and sew. And I also enjoy baking and cooking a lot, especially baking. It seems like each of the grandkids have a favorite thing that they like, and especially the homemade buns, I think, is a favorite of everybody. And I enjoy making all these things for them. I was born on September 28th, 1934. I have 1 sister and 1 brother. My sister is 5 years older than I am, and my brother is 4 years older than I am. And when they were expecting me, my dad wanted a boy and my mother wanted a girl, and I always told them afterwards in later years that I made them both happy because Mom got her girl, but I was such a tomboy. I was always outside with my dad helping him, so he got his boy too. My sister was more quiet, liked to read and kind of be by herself. My brother, I would go out and play catch with him. And one of the fun things that we did together was we had this big barn with a big hay mow upstairs and lots of pens for the sheep and the cattle and stuff. And so then we would fill our squirt guns with water and chase one another around the barn and hide, and we could play doing that for a couple of hours in the afternoon. And if our squirt guns were getting low on water, then we had to work our way out to the tank that was just outside the barn to get our guns filled up again. On Sundays afternoon, we would, or towards evening, we would go bullhead fishing, and that was always fun to do. And then when we came home, my dad didn't clean fish, and so my mother and brother and I would start cleaning fish. And then my sister had to wash them as we got them cleaned. And then after we got a few ahead, then my mother would quit cleaning and she would go in and start frying bullheads for supper. I always used to kid my sister that she was so dumb because she couldn't learn how to clean fish, but I finally decided that maybe she was the smart one. When I was younger, I remember we had gas lamps that we used at night for light. We didn't have, of course, running water or anything then either. I was practically through high school before we got a TV, so it was probably 1950. I had lots of pets. I'm an animal lover, still am, always was. We had one dog that my dad picked up at an auction sale for 10 cents. She was a little rat terrier, and she would have 2 litters of pups a year, and usually quite a large amount, 6 or 8. And of course I always played with them and had fun until they were old enough we had to find homes for them. And my great uncle Joe had gotten a goat one day at a farm auction, and brought that to our place and put it in the barn with the sheep. And we weren't home, we were in town, and we came home and my dad went out to do chores, and here's this goat that's in the barn, and he wasn't too happy with Uncle Joe, but there wasn't anything he could do about it. So when I was probably a junior in high school, I finally saved up enough money and bought my own horse and my own saddle and stuff. So, and that was an Appaloosa Arabian horse, and really classy, pretty horse, and he stood around like he was bored to death, but the minute you got on him, his head came up and his tail came up, and away you went. So. We were 19 when we got married in 1954, February 10th, 1954. When we started dating, Richie didn't dance, and I loved to go dancing, and so he was going to learn how to dance. And they milked cows, and you had stanchions with the cows in on two sides, and then there was a walkway down the middle. And while he was, they had milking machines, and so as he was milking the cows, they had a radio in the barn. And old-time music came on the radio at 6:15 every night. And so I would show him steps, and then while the milking machines were milking the cows, he would practice these dance steps up and down between the cows on this runway. So, I think we were fairly strict, kind of like my folks were. The kids were allowed to have your fun and good times and stuff, but we liked you to have your manners and be polite to other people, and so we had rules and regulations and stuff, but not overly strict, I guess. So Rick had an imagination. He would dream up games and different things for the kids to do. He more or less kept them entertained a lot for me while I was busy doing other things. And it must have been a farmer that Rick was helping, and he got his first paycheck. And so we stopped at Squint and Bonnie's little East End market so he could cash his check. And the kids and I just stayed in the car and waited for him to come out. And when he came out, he had a treat for each of the other kids that he bought out of his paycheck. Robin was more quiet, and her feelings got hurt really easily. It was at Christmas time, and the kids had drawn names, and I'd taken them out shopping, trying to keep them separate when they were buying the gift for the other person, so they didn't know what they were getting. And so then I would take them and wrap them separately, and so Robin was being good enough to let Rolly help her wrap Rick's present, whose name she had, and she, no, don't say anything, and no, she wouldn't. And so they get it wrapped and going to come and put it under the tree, and Robin was letting Rolly do it, and she comes skipping into the living room. Here comes Ricky's wrecker. And needless to say, Robin was pretty upset with her. So, Randy was kind of mischievous. I mean, he didn't do anything bad, but was just kind of always into a few little things. And our telephones had a cord on them at that time, and so you could only get probably 6 feet away from the phone. And Randy was sticking his fingers in the frosting on the cake that I had on the table, and I kept shaking my finger at him and glaring at him, and he wasn't paying any attention because he knew I couldn't get at him. And finally I just said to the person I was talking to, I gotta go, and I hung up, and he took off outside running, and the other kids were outside. And so I was chasing him, and he knew if I caught him I was going to spank him. And he would run, and he would look over his shoulder, and when I got close, well, he'd quick turn. And anyway, and the other kids were all cheering Randy on to get away from me. And finally I got to laughing at the whole situation, uh, and anyway I caught him, and we fell on the ground laughing, and I sure I had to give him a few swats on the butt just to prove my case, but um, Roxy and Rolly were just two little girls that just followed along the other kids and did whatever they were doing, I guess. So, but my favorite thing that I did with them every night was they'd get their pajamas on for bed, and then uh, I would read them books every night before they went to bed, and they of course they each had their favorite one and stuff, and we had one that we had to read this one book every night, My Toys. And so one time when Grandpa and Grandma Groff had come to visit, um, and Grandma was reading them their books that night before they went to bed, and so she got done and she hadn't read that favorite book, and Rick says, "Okay, Grandma, I'll read you a story now." And he was probably about 5 years old. I don't think they were in school yet. And Grandma says, "Oh yeah, okay, well you read me a book, you know." And so he picked up this My Toys book that they knew by heart and turned the pages just like he was reading it, but he had the whole thing memorized according to the pictures, and Grandma was just could hardly believe it. So it was in June 3rd, 1968. It was a really hot day that day, and I had stayed home from work to make dinner because we had corn shellers coming, and they got done shelling corn in the morning, and then they ate dinner, and then Richie and the kids were going to go over to this other 80 of land that we farmed and pick rock, and it was such a hot day. I decided to stay home from work and help them pick rock too, although I had tried to tell them it was too hot not to even go out. But anyway, Richie took the tractor and the hay rack and the older kids, and then I got some lunch together and brought Rolly with me, and then we went over to the 80, and they were down at the far end of the field, so we parked about up in the middle of the 80, and there was a deserted building site there, and so I took Rolly's blanket and pillow out, and she was going to lay there and take a nap. So I got her situated, and then I walked down the field to meet them, and when when I came up to him, Richie said he wasn't feeling good, his stomach hurt, and I said, "Well, it's so hot out here." I said, "Well, we shouldn't be picking rock anyway," and so he laid up on the hay rack and rode until we got down to the building site, and then I said, "Well, why don't you go over and by Rolly, and then we'll take the tractor down the end of the field and come back to the building site, and then we'll just go home." And I was watching him as he walked across the field, and when he got to Rolly, he just kind of threw himself down, I thought, and but Rolly was just crying and having a conniption fit because he'd fallen on her pillow, and he didn't get up and move, and so then I told the kids to shut the tractor off, and I went running across, and the kids came, and we thought he was unconscious, and so then we opened the back of the station wagon and loaded him into the back of the station wagon, and Rick was back there with him, and was trying to help him breathe, and so we drove really fast into town, didn't get stopped for speeding or anything, and took him up to the hospital, and ran in and got somebody to come out, and they took him in, and then I came in, and the kids just stayed in the car, and then they had told me that they couldn't revive him, so yeah, it was a scary feeling. And like I said, Of course, the first few days were just such a blur with so many people around, coming and going and making funeral arrangements and um, everything. It was um, such a hectic time that you didn't have much time to really think about what was going to happen in the future. But then um, Schwann's gave me the summer off from work. Um, and so I was home with the kids that summer, and so it gave you plenty of time to think about what you were going to do. And I was just thankful that I had a job uh, to work for. And then um, I got Social Security payments that helped out so that we could, with that and with me working, we were able to pay our bills and um, feed the kids, and it was pretty devastating. It was April 17th, 1988, and it was later in the afternoon, and I got a telephone call from Renee telling me that Rick had drowned. She was in the cities. They had um, they had taken him there after the scuba diving accident, and she wasn't even sure what hospital he was at, so she was trying to find him. And so we were getting our stuff together to go in and be up there with her. And then we found out what him and a group of people had been out scuba diving in the lake that they live on, only they were at the public access, which was over on the other side of the lake. And um, each had a dive, and there was some guy out there that was promoting a new scuba diving suit that was supposed to be more comfortable, and it had a zipper clothing at the neck instead of having to have that tight suit around your neck when you weren't in the water. You could unzip it. And anyway, then Rick and his friend got another chance to go for another dive, and evidently he got so excited about being able to go and forgot this was a different suit and didn't zip up the neck on it. And as long as he was down, he didn't notice and had his air tanks on and stuff. And then they surfaced to come in, and they had signaled one another that they were both up, and so that his friend was ahead of him. And when he got to the dock, he turned around to look, and Rick was nowhere to be seen. And of course, then they all started going to search for him, and they found him just laying on the floor bottom of the lake. And he had stopped, or when he hadn't zipped up that suit, he was taking in water. And then when he had come to the surface, he had taken wasn't using his air anymore. And so when he went down, he just basically drowned. I know when Renee called, I assumed he'd probably had a heart attack because Richie had died young from heart problems, and I just thought that he had too, but no, it wasn't. So, well, after Richie passed away, I kind of lost my faith for a while, because I just couldn't believe that God would take such a good person as Richie when there were so many other people out there that I felt probably weren't as good as he was. And so I was pretty bitter about that for a long time. But then I thought, well, I'm not God, I guess, and I don't decide who's going to live and who's not. And so then I got my faith back again, and that helped me when Rick passed away. I wasn't so angry that time. I accepted it more. Um, it's just, it's, um, it's hard losing a spouse or a person or a parent or something, but it's a lot harder losing a child. It's been fun and entertaining, and I was always glad to have you kids come to my house. A friend of mine and I uh, had started doing some clowning, and then when the SSU started having their parade, we started entering a unit in that under the Eagles Club, and we wanted lots of clowns, so we talked my grandkids into joining us, and we had quite a family affair there for a while, and the kids had a lot of fun and enjoyed that too. And then we always got together for everybody's birthday and the holidays, and so we had a lot of togetherness and fun times to remember. So I think it's just important to be there for one another and help out when you can, when somebody needs some help. So and being we were all so close, everybody is really willing to do that, and everybody's really good about helping out. So my family, they've they're all hard workers. They've all done well, have good husbands and wives and families themselves, and so yeah, I'm just proud of them. I guess always to be there to help others, whether they're less fortunate than you, or it's not the material things in life that are so important. It's the family that's more important, and helping others and being kind to others. But I think all my family's pretty good at doing that already. So and that's why I'm proud of them. Remember your family. Family is important. Material things aren't. You don't have to have all the big grand things. I mean, just a simple life is a good life.